Today, we're diving into something pretty incredible. We're looking at how centuries of turmoil between Ireland and Great Britain didn't just create a new nation, but also fueled an absolute explosion of literary genius. It's a powerful story of how national pain can become truly universal art. So, that really is the big question, isn't it? How does a history packed with conflict, famine, and revolution become the raw material for some of the greatest books and plays of the 20th century? We're going to see how Ireland's struggle wasn't just a political story, it was the very ink that its most famous writers used. But, before we can even begin to understand the ink on the page, we have to understand the history in the soil. The story of Ireland's literary giants, well, it doesn't start in some cozy Dublin pub. It starts centuries, and I mean centuries earlier. Okay, this is basically 800 years of escalating tension in a nutshell. It all kicks off with the Norman conquest way back in 1169. Then, a really key moment, Henry VIII's Reformation in the 1500s. Suddenly, Irish identity gets fused with Catholicism, putting it directly at odds with English Protestantism. The Battle of the Boyne in 1690 pretty much cements that division, and by 1801, with the Act of Union, it's official. Ireland is now part of the United Kingdom, but it's that last date, 1845, that would carve the absolute deepest scar. This number, it's just staggering to think about. During the Great Famine, when the potato crop failed over and over again, as many as 1.5 million people died. They died from starvation, from disease. Another million had no choice but to emigrate, scattering all over the world. It was a catastrophe on a scale that's almost impossible to fully grasp. And this really shows the lasting wound. I mean, think about it. Ireland is one of the only countries in the entire world with a smaller population today than it had almost 200 years ago. That isn't just a statistic. It's like a ghost that haunts the country. This profound sense of loss, of a nation literally hollowed out, became a permanent part of the Irish psyche. So, after all that simmering history, everything finally boils over. We are now hitting the breaking point, the early 20th century. This is the moment when centuries of resentment just erupt into open rebellion, into civil war, and ultimately into the birth of a brand new and very fractured state. And it all happened so fast, it's dizzying. In 1916, you have the Easter Rising in Dublin. Now, it's brutally put down, but it lights a fire that can't be extinguished. That leads to a guerrilla war, and then the Anglo-Irish Treaty in 1921. But the treaty is hugely controversial, and it leads directly to a bitter, bloody civil war, pitting former comrades against each other. It's just a chaotic, violent, and world-changing few years. So, the Irish Free State is born, but it's a complicated victory, to say the least. The treaty carves out 6 counties in the north to remain part of the UK. So, in a way, it solves one conflict by creating a brand new one, embedding division right onto the map of the island itself. And this is the city, this divided, scarred, revolutionary Dublin that our authors are about to put on the world stage. Right. So it's from these very ashes of war and revolution that an absolutely incredible artistic movement rises. We're going to focus on 2 giants who took this raw, chaotic Dublin and transformed it into world literature, Sean O'Casey and James Joyce. Now, what's so fascinating here is you have 2 completely different ways of tackling the same city at the exact same time. On one hand, you've got O'Casey. He's the public voice, putting the slums and the political violence right there on the stage for everyone to see. Then you've got Joyce, the private mind, who's more interested in mapping the inner consciousness of Dublin's citizens. One looked outward at the state of the nation, the other looked inward at the state of the human mind. Let's start with O'Casey. He was born into a poor Protestant family right in the Dublin slums, and he was deeply involved in the Irish labor movement. So he saw the whole nationalist struggle through a socialist lens. He wasn't focused on the glory of patriotism, but on its devastating effect on the working class. The actual people who had to live through all the heroic speeches and gunfire. His 3 most famous plays, the Dublin Trilogy, are a direct reflection of the history we just covered. He puts the guerrilla war, the Civil War, and the Easter Rising right on the stage, but not in the way people expected. See, instead of clear heroes and villains, he gives his audience terrified poets, strutting drunkards, and completely exhausted mothers. He showed the revolution not from the politician's podium, but from inside the tenement kitchen. And this quote, this really gets to the heart of his work. In a time that was all about defining this new, masculine, Catholic Irish identity, O'Casey put working-class women at the moral center of his plays. Characters like Juno Boyle, They were the ones who saw the true cost of the violence. They were the ones holding things together while the men's patriotic fantasies were tearing their world apart. That wasn't just a dramatic choice, it was a really profound political statement. All right, let's switch gears to James Joyce. Joyce took a completely different path. He felt that to become the artist he needed to be, he actually had to leave Ireland. So he went into this self-imposed exile in Europe. But here's the thing, artistically, he never left Dublin for a second. His entire life's work was this monumental effort to rebuild his home city, not with bricks, but with words and thoughts. And the tool he used to do this was totally revolutionary. It's called stream of consciousness. I mean, think about your own mind right now. You're not just hearing my voice. You're probably also thinking about what you're going to have for dinner, or a song is stuck in your head, or you're noticing a little scuff on your shoe. Joyce was the first to put all of that chaotic, unfiltered mental noise down on the page. He argued that this internal chaos was every bit as real and important as any external battle. And his masterpiece, Ulysses, is the ultimate example of this. It's this huge, epic novel that all takes place on one single day. So while O'Casey was putting the public revolution on the stage, Joyce was revealing a private one. He shows us that an entire world of drama, history, and humanity exists inside the mind of an ordinary person, like Leopold Bloom, just walking through the city. For Joyce, the true life of a nation wasn't found in its headlines, but in the boundless universe of a single person's consciousness. So what's the takeaway here? We've seen the history and we've seen the art. The legacy is in how perfectly they mirror each other. The chaos, the division, the hope, and the tragedy of Ireland's birth, it's all preserved perfectly in the work of these writers. And here's the final, fascinating twist. Both O'Casey and Joyce eventually left Ireland. They became exiles. But that distance didn't sever their connection. If anything, it sharpened it. They used that exile to process, to understand, and to transform the painful, messy history of their home into something absolutely timeless and universal. And that kind of leaves us with one last thought. O'Casey and Joyce held up a mirror to the conflicts of their time, and they created a record more real, more profound than any history book. It really makes you wonder, when future generations look back at our time, what stories will our artists be telling? What will the mirror of our era show them?